Hello, hello. Welcome to the Fresh Start podcast. We have a great guest. I'm really excited to talk to you today. But before we get to that, I'll introduce my co-host, Stacy. How are you doing, Stacy?
I am doing good. I feel like we just saw each other yesterday.
I know. I know, because we did. We were at the retreat together, and well, we did see each other. We
We
did a
did see
taping
each other.
yesterday. Oh, I
I
forgot.
know.
See,
I
I
love
already
the
forgot.
podcast because we get
Yeah,
to see each other so often, and that's
I
wonderful.
I know that is. It sort of builds in some girlfriend time, so it's a wonderful thing. And you're down in Florida where it's warm, and I'm jealous. Actually, it's not too bad here in Nashville today. So, um, anyway, it's great to see you. And we, like I said, have a really amazing guest. When we started the Fresh Start podcast, when we came up with this idea, our guest today was one of the first people that popped up in my mind to talk to about a fresh start because he literally did it. So before we get to that, I want to tell you a little bit about our friend James Casto, who is here. So James, he got his bachelor's degree at Georgia State University. And then he was struggling to work as a musician, but he eventually decided to pursue a career in the business world. So he earned his MBA from the University of Notre Dame in 1996 and spent several years in in the business world, building a highly successful company with three of his colleagues. But on the morning of September 11th, 2001, as it did for many Americans, all of that changed. While watching the unforgettable scenes in New York City on TV, James realized he had to take a leap of faith and pursue his passion of music. With trepidation but hope for the future, he left his corporate job to pursue music full time in January 2002, and this decision changed his life forever. James restarted his music career and quickly became a regular on the Nashville music scene, learning the ropes from other successful songwriters and performing at the Bluebird Cafe, Douglas Corner, and other notable Music City venues. He had his first major songwriting cut in 2006 with a song called Peace on Earth that was recorded by platinum-selling artist Lila McCann. Since then, he's written songs for Lisa Kelly, formerly of Celtic Woman, and numerous indie artists. In addition, James has written special project music for Mazda, Kroger, Macy's, and Mercy Ships International, among many others. A true believer in the power of music, in 2007, James began to spread this message by sharing the stage with his songwriting friends, inviting them to join him for In the Round songwriter shows just north of Atlanta. Thus was the birth of Home by Dark, a powerful and inspiring concert event featuring the best songwriters and musicians in America. Each show weaves stories, humor, improvisation, and magical performances that truly happen once in a lifetime and are unique to each audience. James says, our goal each night at Home by Dark is to reach your heart, make you feel something, and prove that a song can change your life. So please welcome to the Fresh Start podcast, my friend James Casto. Hi, James.
Marsha, ladies, how are you? Man, that I need to find out who wrote that. I'm I think I can't remember who we hired to do that, but I need to double whatever I paid them. That's pretty nice.
We were interviewing our friend Stacy Friendish yesterday, and I was reading her bio, and she was like, it's kind of nice to remember what you've done every now and then. You forget.
No kidding, man. It's been so long. No kidding.
I know. So let's start at the beginning. When you were growing up, did you have a passion for music just right from the start when you were a kid?
Yeah, man, I had two things on my mind growing up, and it was sports and music. That was it. My whole world revolved around that. And I remember specifically um, gravitating towards drums. I listened to a lot of R&B and Motown as a real young kid, and just loved the rhythm of it. So I remember buying some drumsticks or getting some drumsticks somehow. And as a real young kid, my bed was my drum kit. And I would sit for hours listening to the radio, and I would play my mattress with the drumsticks and play along. And that was it. That was my world. And I would envision playing with big bands and all kind of things. But yeah, man, that was it. My world was around those two things.
That's awesome. So you had dreams of doing music professionally. but things changed
Yeah.
later on. So tell me how
Yeah.
that went.
Yeah. So I like a lot of kids was in bands and all kind of stuff, and you kind of weave your way through that. But somewhere in my 20s, I remember going out one night with a buddy of mine to see a famous. He was in a band at the time. I won't name the band, but he was a songwriter for a big hit. And we went to go see him in Atlanta at a club at like midnight on a Tuesday, some crazy. And this guy was playing in a club who had had this success, and it was just me and my buddy and the bartenders, and it was a very sad scene. It was difficult, and it caused me to look around my landscape of friends who were musicians. And to be very candid, it was like the scared straight moment because all my friends were broke, homeless, or in dire straits. And I just remember going, man, I I cannot go down this path anymore. And I thought, man, I need some financial stability. I need a path towards some normalcy. And I can remember I had dropped out of undergrad. I the next day I remember going back in at Georgia State, re-signing up for classes, getting my degree, and trying to pivot and turn that around. And from out of undergrad, eventually going into grad school, all with this intention of I'm now going to take music and kind of put it to the side to have a life that an adult should have. And this is my perspective. And
Right.
so I'm gonna go down that path. So yeah, that was where I was at that time.
And you were successful. You built a business and a very successful business.
Yeah, so I came out of grad school out of Notre Dame and started with these three guys who were business mentors of mine, and they allowed me incredible opportunity to work into a partnership with them of this company. And so over the next 4 years, we built this from scratch, and we got bought almost 4 years to the day, and that was their intention. They told me that at the beginning, we're going to build this and sell it, and we did, and it was like an advanced business school for me, but it wasn't like a tech company where you made billions or something. It wasn't life-changing money. It was a nice thing for me financially, but it wasn't life-changing. So I went to work for the company that bought me, and we went from a my company originally was about 17 people, very entrepreneurial. When we got bought, it's a national company headquartered in Los Angeles and Seattle. And you know, in the old days, if I wanted to buy a pen or something, I just bought a pen. Now it take like 3 weeks and paperwork, to get my pen, whatever. And anyway, it was an interesting experience. It was good. They paid me well. I had a lot of the perks associated with being an executive at a large company. And from the outside looking in, I had done it. I had done exactly what I set out to do when I went to grad school. Was I had pursued business, I having success, and if you took a snapshot of what I was doing at my early 30s, then you would go, he did it. He won, and everything looked perfect except for one thing, and I was miserable,
Mm.
Hmm.
absolutely miserable. I felt like I was drowning, so much so to the point I would have these, I wouldn't call them full-blown panic attacks, but I'd have these moments where I felt my life was over. I felt trapped. I felt trapped because I was doing well and I had a house, I had a wife, I had these responsibilities to me. And if I abandoned what I was doing, all of that would crumble. I was responsible for that. And so it was a terrible place to be mentally,
Mhm.
dealing with that. Again, because I'd achieved what I set out to. And when I got there, I was extremely uncomfortable and disappointed. And it was just a dark, dark time.
Mm. So September 11th
Yeah,
happens.
I could not tell you what I had for breakfast literally today or what color socks I'm wearing right now without looking, but I can tell you the details of Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. I was going into work late because I had made a hair appointment, and I always got my hair cut on Tuesdays. And so I was buttoning my light yellow polo button down. I got to the second from the top button. The TV was on, and so I was watching this report on the first plane that had gone in. It was just speculation. There was no panic. It was like, oh, I'm in a terrible accident. And as I was buttoning that next to last button, I literally saw the second plane fly in. And instinctually in my gut, I just knew I knew it was intentional, and I knew the world had changed. I knew my life was going to be different. I didn't know how. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew it was alarm bells going off in my gut and my instinct. And so I remember driving into work, trying to call my friends in New York, and couldn't get a hold of anybody that worked downtown. And I remember calling Karen, my wife, telling her to just leave work and go home. And I got to my office, and everybody in the office was gathered around a television in the conference room watching it. And I went straight from my office and I closed the door, and I literally started pacing up and down my floor, up in my office, wearing out the carpet, and I'm just mumbling. And I'm having this conversation with God out loud. If you walk past my door at that time, you think a crazy man was in there. And I'm just rambling. And it's like the house is on fire. And I'm saying, God, get me out of here. I don't want to do this. If my life ends today, I'm going to be extremely disappointed in what I'm doing and what I have done. I do not want to do this. Get me out of here. And man, I don't claim to hear audible voices from God, but I do get heavily impressed by him at times. And this was one of those times where I felt as if a father would ask his son, a friend would ask a friend, James, what do you want to do? And I immediately, my impulse was a business impulse. It was, here's what I can do, here's what I'm qualified for. I could do this, this, and this to get out of here to go jump into some other thing. And I felt like I was stopped in mid-sentence as a good friend, as you would ask me or I would ask you. And it's not what I asked you. I asked you what you want to do. And my and I just impulsively, as honest I could be, I said, I want to write songs. And when I said those exact words, I had tears in my eyes, and I felt this wave of shame and guilt because from my perspective, I had been given so much. I was successful when I was doing. I had resources, a nice car. I had all the things that I was supposed that made a good life. And here I am in my mind, sounding ungrateful because I was asking for more, and I was asking for something outside of what I should ask for. But I said it. And the next impression that came on me was as something like you and I would say to each other. I felt like God just said, well, get on with it. And I remember at that exact moment saying, all right, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write songs 15 minutes a day, regardless of what I'm doing. And at the time, I was traveling a lot. So if I was flying in from Seattle or Los Angeles, got back to Atlanta at 3 in the morning, I would go in my garage and I would just write, play piano for 15 minutes. And I at the time I thought at this point I'm going to start a parallel career. In my office, I said those words, a parallel career. And as soon as I said those words, I felt like the drowning stopped. I felt like I at least grabbed the side of the boat that was no longer going underwater. And
Mm.
so I set out to never to quit my job. It was simply to have a parallel career of pursuing this musical thing. And and then about almost 3 months to the day, I get a call from our headquarters in Seattle, the guy who was over me. And he said, hey man, we're shutting your division down. Your job has been eliminated, and you can either take a little bit of severance, or we can try to find some place for you in the company, in a different departments, sales, whatever. And I knew without beyond a shadow of a doubt, I had to leave. I was on the ledge anyway,
Yeah.
ready to take a leap of faith. And it was that shove that said, all right, now I'm going to do it. And it was this combination, much like when I made the decision to go to grad school and leave everything in Atlanta to go do that. It was this combination of fear and excitement. Same thing. I had this fear of what's going to happen after my severance runs out. But I was also excited about the possibility. And so in January 1 of 2002 is when I set off on my own. And, and for the next 5 years, it was scrambling, experimenting, all kind of figuring out how to make a life and how to survive. And while trying to go, I went to Nashville all the time.
Hmm.
Sometimes two, three, 4 times a week, just up and back, or sleep in
Hmm.
my van. I would park at Centennial Park and sleep in my van. I got an adapter for my cigarette lighter so I could play piano in the back of the van.
Oh
And
man.
And and the next pivotal moment for me, I was at the Bluebird and I went to see Vince Gill. And they randomly assigned tables at the Bluebird, and my table was on Vince's shoulder. I'm literally on his shoulder,
Oh,
and I'm like beside myself. This is so cool. And the show was great. And Vince's last song of the evening was "Go Rest High on That Mountain," which
mm,
he'd written for his brother who'd passed. And as I'm sitting there listening to it, Vince, I could see because I'm this close to him, I could touch him. There's tears coming down his face, and his voice starts to break. And the song had been out for a while, so he'd sung it hundreds of times, if not 1,000 times, but he
right.
was still affected by it. And I'm looking around the audience, and all of us are affected by it. There's tears. I had tears in my. Everybody had tears in their eyes. And when the song finished, there was this vacuum of silence for just a brief moment, as if nobody wanted to interrupt what we just experienced. That we'd all been affected at the exact same time, and we didn't want to ruin it. It was a spiritual moment. We didn't want to shatter it. But
Mm,
as unified as we are in that silence, we were also unified, and we all exploded at the same time with applause. And from my ears, my memory of the I just felt like the applause sounded different. It didn't sound like fan adoration that you would get at a normal rock concert or something of people just loving the artist. It was applause of gratitude. It felt like thank you, Vince, because a great songwriter is able to present an emotion that you felt, but they do it in a creative way that is very powerful, that resonates with you. And
mm.
we could all resonate with that song. And so on that drive home from Nashville that night is when I said, man, oh, that's it. I'd already fallen in love with the songwriters format, the in-round format, but I wanted something more. And Vince, that experience to me was it. How could I then go back to my home in Georgia and create events with songwriters that create moments that transform you, that inspire you, motivate you, encourage you? How could I do that? And I didn't know how. I didn't have an answer. I just knew I had to start. And so, like every good business, every business needs to start somewhere. So I just started. I just got some buddies. I started inviting friends, and we just started. And I'll figure it out along the way. But my main goal was to find those moments in a show that will transform you. And to this day, that's really the purpose. What we aim for. Everything we do is aimed at doing that.
It's amazing.
I mean, what comes to mind as I'm listening to you is just your connection to your own intuition. And with as much a part of that, you understand that emotion, that intuitive drive. There are people that I run into all the time that don't feel that connection to intuition. They don't possess that. They know what to do next in other ways. So I would just like to ask you the question, like how would you describe that if you couldn't use the word intuition? Like what is it? How did you know what you were doing? How did you
Well,
know how to get started with that?
I didn't know. I think maybe that's the broader point. I literally didn't know. I just knew I had to start. I think it was, I forget who told me this years ago, but an ocean liner is impossible to steer left or right until it's moving forward. So I just knew I had to go forward. And, but I agree with you. And I think one of the lessons I learned through all this and what I advise young business owners or anybody starting a business with is trust your instincts. It took me years to develop the confidence and to act on that instinct. I think the instincts are there in all of us, but out of fear, out of because everybody does it a certain way, you're fearful to trust your instincts. And certainly when I first started, I tried to mimic certain things that other people were doing, and but every once in a while, I would say, man, it doesn't feel right. I'm going to do it this way. And I think of one of my favorite scriptures, which is in Romans 12:2, and do not conform to the pattern of this world. And that resonates with me so much because the natural instinct for us, I think, this is how most people do it. So I'm going to do it this way. It's
Mm.
safer that way. When in your heart or your mind you're going, man, either I'm not feeling it, or I just want to do it a different way. Um, and then just I think the more you do it, to answer your question, Stacy, the more you do it, um, the more you grow confidence in your ability to trust your instincts and
Hmm.
make those decisions.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. That was a remarkable story. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, we were just talking before we started recording. James was saying that Home by Dark, 19 years now that he's been
Mm.
doing this beautiful songwriter series that was his brainchild. And I've been coming down for about 15 years of that. And so I have watched it, I have watched James grow. And I've also had conversations enough to know that you've said things, well, we tried this, didn't work. And you just try something else. So there has been, it hasn't always been just like a forward trajectory. You've tried this but then you go, all right, well, that didn't work. Well, we'll go this way. So there, I guess there has been a lot of experimenting along the way, right?
100%. Um, 100%. When we first started, um, I honestly didn't know what I was doing. And so, but my purpose from day one was the same then as it is now. But the mechanics of how you attract an audience, how you maintain the attention of an audience, how you treat an audience, how you treat your performers, how you treat your team, how to run the business of it has all evolved along the way. And when we first started, if you took our first show and put that against what we do now, it doesn't even look the same. And so that's come from that's just come from experimentation, as you say. Um, and also, I love, for example, I love the intimacy of the Bluebird, but I also love going to a concert and those big moments when electric guitar goes or the drum is cranking. I love the power of that emotion. So when I first started, man, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the resources to put a band together and like that. So we started with what we could do, two songwriters, me, and we just kind of play some songs together. And we evolve into, as the audience grew, our first show, no one showed up. And so
No.
as as people started to show up and the crowds got bigger, I felt this responsibility, you know, like when we first started, we never rehearsed. Marsha would come down, somebody else would come down, and we would just play songs for 2 hours. But the larger the crowds got, the more of this sense of responsibility and a sense of opportunity that if we put some intentionality into the show production itself and how we structure which songs go where, we have the opportunity to really tap into these moments that I have felt with Vince Gill back in the Bluebird. And so that's when you start rehearsing. You start putting this structure. You're putting a set list together. You start timing things out and to put some formality to it. Um, and and that changed everything. And the more intentional we got, the more purpose we put into things, the more structure. All while leaving room as well for improvisation and spontaneity. But the more framework I put around it, the more successful it became. And but that only came from, as you point out, being willing to experiment, to say, man, that that experience we did last night wasn't as good as it could be, so let's try this. And even today we do that. I tell you a funny story. And we 2 years ago we were in a venue in Alpharetta, Georgia, and I own all the tables and chairs for this particular series. And we have about 350 people show up for this series. And I noticed about 30 minutes into every single show, my audience would start to squirm in their seats. And and I noticed it from stage. And and then I start talking to some people and they're so sweet. I was like, "Oh, are you okay?" I learned that the seating was uncomfortable. The chairs I had bought I got for a bargain were just torturous, man. They were impossible to sit in. And
Oh,
so my job is to do a songwriter show, but my audience they're not going to get those Vince Gill moments if they're uncomfortable. So I did a ton of research over the off season, and I invested a bunch of money in some really comfortable chairs that work for that venue, and all but the chairs, the set list, the structure of the band, the rehearsing, all of it is pointing to the exact same purpose to love people, to inspire, motivate, and encourage people through original music from songwriters. It all has that same purpose.
When did you come up with that purpose statement?
That was early. That was pretty much day one. I mean, that's what I wanted to do, was that because I felt that's what I experienced in the Bluebird. I felt like maybe it was less intentional what they did to me, but I knew how it affected me. So I wanted to translate that out to other people. And so, you know, the young people that come to work for us, um, well, whoever's in our circle, our orbit, I try to make sure they understand that, so that, when you come to our series at this venue with this table seating series we do, if you show up, there's going to be a person greeting you when you get out of your car, and they're going to say, "Hey, Stacy, welcome to Home by Dark, and we're going to walk you to your table if you need help with your picnic basket, whatever." And they do that. We instruct them to do that, but they also understand the reason they do that is because it's a method to love you, to serve you, to inspire you for that, and prepare you for the night you're about to have. Um, it all has that singular purpose, and I think that's a great point for me. I do talk to business people and people starting businesses, and it's, man, start with that. Identify and clarify that purpose, because if you don't, you're definitely going to hit challenges and rough spots when you start something, and if that's not clear in your mind, then you're going to crumble and probably
Yeah.
not succeed.
It seems like a compass
Yeah,
of sorts.
yeah, yeah,
You have to
exactly.
remember your why, right? You have to, if you,
100%.
if you
Yeah.
don't remember why you're doing it, as I'm listening, and I've known you for years, but it's just now hitting me. And I can't think of the author's name. I should know it, but there was a book I read years ago called "Cure for the Common Life." Do y'all know who
Hmm.
wrote that song?
Mm.
Who wrote that book? Oh, I can't. Max Lucado or Lucado
Oh, he's
is I don't.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in that book, he talks about how we each don't have just one gift. God didn't give us just one gift. And when we can sort of identify what we do well and all of the different areas and kind of merge them into one thing, that's where we can sort of find they calls it a sweet spot. And that's where you really can shine and where you can really make a difference in the world. And as I'm listening to you tell your story, I'm realizing that you really were, even though you had your little veer into the business world, without that business background, you wouldn't have been able to probably make Home by Dark what it is, not just being a musician, but you took your passion for music, and then you also took your your business sense that you learned, and you were able to fuel all of that, and you have the energy for it. And I mean, I know you. It's like, and your personality and everything, you were just created to do something like this. It just makes so much sense, with it's like it all came together. It's
It,
beautiful.
it's definitely a crooked path, and my life is nothing like I intended it to be, or thought it would be. But you're exactly right. And so I'm grateful for the business acumen, that time there, that it's applicable now. I'm also thankful because when I started this journey, remember, all I wanted to do was write songs. I literally thought my life would be, my ideal world was writing songs in my house in peace and quiet, and walking to the mailbox every day and getting checks. I mean, that was it. But the pursuit of songwriting, to go to Nashville to learn and to network and to record and perform, led me to this experience, which superseded, which way more important than writing songs to me was, okay, I've got this skill set that I've developed, that I can take what they're doing here, translate it to my neighborhood where I live, and really make a difference. And to where I'm still a songwriter, obviously, but it's so less important to me than than building this larger thing that has a greater impact. And again, I never would have chosen it. I never would have predicted it. It's but it's I think it's a lesson for all of us to sometimes. I think it was Billy Graham or I can't remember, but I think it was Billy Graham who said, "Don't fight life." And and this journey was simply being willing when you get knocked this direction, go ahead and go that direction, see where that leads you, and trust it along the way, um, and just be willing to be open to where you're headed.
I think it's such a great story for people to hear because sometimes, I talk to people that are trying to make a new start, but similar to you, they think of all the barriers or the fears or, what might happen and can get kind of stuck in that or maybe not even want to get started until they think they clearly understand and can really quantify and plan out exactly how they want things to unfold. So either one of those directions, can put a big pause on the fresh start. So I loved
Hmm.
how you wrap some words around that by saying, you saw some of those fears, but you had something in you that just knew you had to take the next right step and put some planning around it, but leave room. Like to me, that sounds like such a great equation for
Mhm.
making a fresh start.
Yeah, yeah. I tell people the fear behind me was greater than the fear in front of me, and that
Mm.
and to me the greater risk, and like everything from choosing to leave Atlanta for 2 years to go to grad school to leaving my more stable corporate experience to go entrepreneurial. I knew what was behind. I knew the risk of staying versus the unknown ahead of me. And that, to me, from my perspective, the greater risk was staying where I was. And so going forward was full of possibility. And you're exactly right, man. You better be flexible, man. If you're making a fresh start in anything in life, be flexible. Um, I think it's good to Stacy and Marsha to maintain perspective and that life is so brief. And as important as music is and songwriting and building this company and all of it was, the longer I did it, we're in our 19th year at Home by Dark, and about halfway through this thing, I think I realized it's really good. It's important. It does good things. But at the end of my life, the bigger difference is impact on people, loving people, and understanding that it, it's not the end all be all of that business. Um, Marsh, you may have heard me say this before, but one of the ways I'm able to maintain that perspective and not stress out and freak out when things go wrong in business or challenges is I love to zoom out and think of things like we're standing on a planet Earth which is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. We're hurling through space at 67,000 miles per hour. Um, our hearts beat 100,000 times a day. We don't have to think about it. The chances of you being born Marcia, Stacy being born Stacy, me being born me is 1 in 400 trillion. And the chances of us even being here talking is by all mathematical formulas impossible. So it's a miracle that we're even here, that we're living. And so whenever I get too laser focused in on the challenges, even early on of starting the business and making a fresh start into it, you gotta have somebody in your life that allow you to pump the brakes and say, hey man, let's zoom out for a second and really is it worth the stress that you're absorbing right now? Um, because it isn't. Do your best, trust your instincts best you can, and walk in the direction you're supposed to. But please, me talking to my younger self would say, James, man, please maintain perspective while you're going through
Oh,
all of it.
that's great.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, before Stacy always has some prompts here towards the end, but before we get there, I just want to talk just a bit more about Home by Dark because it really is such a special thing that's in Alpharetta, which is north of Atlanta. You guys start, you said y'all are starting up in April, is that right?
Yeah, end of April, April 26th. Yeah.
And you have, uh, y'all are doing something almost every weekend, right? You're either at the
At
park.
least, yeah, at least a couple weekends a month. We have a free series, which is sponsored by the city of Alpharetta. It's the same brand experience, whether you do that one or the ticketed one, but the free one, sponsored by the city, outdoor park, a beautiful park. You've been there,
Hmm.
and you show up with your picnic and your golden retriever if you want, and enjoy the show. And then the following week, we typically do shows at a place called Union Hill Park, which is 20,000 square feet of covered space, and it's table seating. So you come in, you get a table for how many people you want. We have about 250, 300 season ticket holders at that event, and it's a more intimate experience. We limit that to about 350 people, but we run those. That's another miracle, and that's another one of those examples of not conforming to the patterns of this world. Everybody told me it's insane to run this exact same brand experience for a free event, and then 7 miles down the road, you do a ticketed event 1 week later. That will never work, James. It will never work. But it works.
It does.
It just works.
It does. And that you say there's 300 people there, but you'll do a Friday and a Saturday night. You'll do two
Often.
nights
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's there, and it's so cool because people come to this event. Yeah. What I love is that you can tell the regulars because they have their table, they bring tablecloths, they bring decorations, they bring candles, they have their picnics. It's an experience. The whole evening is an experience, and you can see it's about community. It's about connecting not only with your friends there that you're with, but then the music takes you to a place, and you have this experience. It's really, really a unique and an amazing, and for even for us as songwriters, every songwriter that I know in Nashville, I mean, the minute they find out that they're going to Home by Dark, they can't wait. They love it, love it, love it. James has a full band. It's like a songwriter in the round, but with a full band behind you. And so, everyone in the band is incredible. And of course, the amazing Carol Ford and Vanessa Connor, they're a special part of it always, every time. And we've had Carol on our God and My Girlfriends podcast before. And it's hard to describe, but if you are in that area and you can get a ticket, it doesn't even matter who's on. Don't even worry about who you're going to see. Just grab a ticket and go, and I promise you will be changed by one of those evenings. They're beautiful events. And so thank you, James, for following your dream and following that little voice inside of you that said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and for doing it because you've impacted literally thousands of people by putting this together. So,
Well, thanks. And it's reciprocal. Anytime you pour out, you get back. And yeah, I've received way much more than we put out in in how people have affected us and been generous to us. And so yeah, yeah. And quickly you brought up the whole idea of the whole an instinctual thing we did early on was the series versus one-offs here, there, and there, because of what you just pointed out of the I knew the power of community and the idea of you coming back every single month and building relationships well beyond what goes on stage,
mhm.
but with the table next to you. And so, yeah, man, it's a cool thing. I wish I could take all the credit for it, but I can't. There's 20, 25 people that produce the show, each one, and a lot of those people, how they came to us is amazing. How I met you is amazing. It's Tony Arado once said, he said about the dance. He said if I could figure out how it all happened, I'd do it every Tuesday. And if you're saying, it's same with me. If I could figure out how this all happened, man, I would do it a lot more often.
Oh man. Well, Stacy, before we end this, can you give us some prompts? Stacy always gives us some Enneagram prompts at the end about after things that we've been talking about today. So what have you got?
Yes, well, I have a barking puppy in the
I
background.
I
So
hear
if you
Charlie.
Charlie's on a roll back there somewhere, so you may you may hear Charlie. So thinking about fresh starts, sometimes it's helpful to reflect on a time when you had to make another significant change in your life. And I think I would change this prompt just a little bit to match the energy that James brought today, which is how are you going to balance your need to know with leaving space for the unknown? And feeling, so imagine the mix of excitement and fear you might feel as you make a change. What's your biggest fear about change, and how can you still find some motivation within that fear? Doing this week, take one small step. So what one small step can you take towards a dream or a passion that you've been putting off? And it could just be simply researching something, a new skill, or reaching out to someone who is doing something you're interested in. So what's one tiny action that you can take today, and how will you hold yourself accountable?
I love those. There's our thinking, feeling, and doing. And like we always do, her prompts will be in our show notes, so you can go back and look at those. And if you're thinking about making a fresh start, maybe those will help you as you're sorting some things out. And we will also have in the show notes everything about James and Home by Dark and everything you need to know. And James Casto, you are a delight. You're a delightful human being, and I'm so glad you're my friend. And thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Forget about it. Forget about it. Thank you both for doing this. This is fun, and I think really valuable to give people the confidence and the support to go jump off a cliff, start something new.
There you go.
That sounds great. James, I hope to see you. Give your lovely wife Karen a big hug for me. Well, after
I'll
she
do
gets
it.
well. All right. Love you, friend. Have a great
love you
day.
too.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.